This tiny little movement I'm about to show you in this video recently helped a student of mine pick up over 30 yards with his driver, and he was straighter with it as well. And whilst it's not easy to see, Rory McIlroy also does this. We're going to show you Rory's swing a little bit later in the video so you can see it, but let's go through exactly what this move is. It's to do with your lead heel, which obviously for me is kind of this one down here. And if done correctly, it can unlock so many good movements, which you're going to see in this video. I've got a really great drill I'd love you to try coming up, but let's go through exactly why this is so important, what it actually works on. It basically helps you pivot. The pivot is your body's movement from setup to the top of the backswing. So if we were to get rid of the arms and the club, it would be how you move from setup to the end of your backswing. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there are almost an unlimited number of ways that you can make that movement. Some are going to look a lot better than others that might look a little bit odd and weird, and when we look at how the body moves, we do see kind of weird and wonderful movements. I stress this in all my videos, but if the body doesn't do the right thing, it's almost impossible for the club to do the right thing. So when I get someone to move their body better, I very often get the club moving better. That gives better impact, and that's exactly what happened with this recent lesson. Let's go through what a good pivot should look like. Club is going to go across my shoulders. I'm going to build my posture around this golf ball. As I move from setup to backswing, there is going to be some rotation. My body has turned, amongst other things, away from the target. But there is also angle through the shoulders. You will also notice that there is angle through my hips, and you will also notice that my lead leg has got a little bit more flex than it had at the start, and my trail leg has lost a little bit of flex. As I do that, I have got a body shape that I want to create, this sort of angled body away from me. Now, what many golfers do is they have the lower body, knees, thighs, hips, kind of shifting too much across. And you can see what that does to the upper body. It starts to tip it towards the target. This was the case with my recent lesson. His legs were going too much in this direction, influenced his upper body. When he started down, it was getting him steep and over the top. And yes, we were measuring that the club was out to win and steep, but it was actually to do with kind of what his body was doing. So when we go from the top down, we look at the shoulders, all of the rotation and the turn influences what happens with the lower body. So watch what happens to my lead foot when I make that poor pivot, the one that he was making. As we slide, the foot can often bank. So the lead side of my foot has lifted off the ground. Now, let's show you what Rory does. Now we need to use the behind angle, but what you're going to see is as Rory goes from backswing to downswing, his left heel will actually slightly lift off the ground, and when it gets replanted, it's replanted closer to the target. Now it's not a huge amount, but it's there and we can see it. So he will, as he completes his backswing, lift the lead heel and then plant it closer to the target. This is the move that I wanted Azza to make. Start your rotation, okay, just slowly. Good, and it was going to feel like as you start to keep turning, this is going to feel like it kind of spins that way. This shoulder is going to go over that knee. You're going to keep the knee high and feel like you clip my foot with your heel, just a backswing, obviously, because I'm in the way. Okay, beautiful. Tack angle down, path out to in, contacts like the heel, just suddenly path right, attack angle up, contact centre. And not one thought was on the club. Go for it. Oh, mate, that's so good. That's so good. Now, you're going to need a golf-specific training aid called a bottle. I'm sure you've all got a bottle, a can, anything would work. We're going to use that in a moment. But here's why it's so good, because what Azza was doing, making this movement, his foot was banking. He couldn't lift that heel. So what I wanted him to do was make a rotation and feel like he actually raised the lead heel and moved it towards the target. So I was getting him to make these movements. So you can see what I'm doing with that lead foot. I'm actually kind of spinning on the ball of my foot, which is causing my heel to lift and move closer to the target. Now this is a movement that I first learned, shout out to Steve Furlonger, and he was teaching me this movement as I was working on my driver swing. It made a big difference to me, and it can make a big difference to you. So this is the first exercise I want you to make. Head is nicely centered, pivot behind it, lift the heel up and move it towards the target. And then when it replants closer to the target, just like we see with Rory McIlroy. As a little bonus point, we're using this movement to create a better pivot going back. But if the heel is lifting into the air, you can use that as your trigger to start your downswing. You can get that pressure really aggressively shifting into that lead side. So here's that little exercise I want you to do. Take a setup and then figure out where your foot is, place your bottle in. So I should have that pretty much ideally set now just in front of my lead heel. Now when we looked at Az's goal swing and when you look at your goal swing, what you might see is something that looks like this. There was this sway, this tip, outside of the foot came off the floor, but that bottle stayed in place. What I was getting Azza to do was make a big turn behind it and knock the bottle over. As you can see there, that was causing his lower body to almost instantly make a better movement. Because we know that everything influences everything. If he was focusing on his heel, he wasn't going to be making the wrong movements, he was going to be making the right movements. And it's such a simple little exercise to do because you get instant feedback. Set myself up, bottle is in place, wind up, lift the heel, move it towards the target. And you can see straight away that I'm able to create this wind up. And then from there, I can obviously plant it and go through. So the next phase to that is actually just making some practice swings. So inside the ball, but I'm going to go ahead now and see if I can make a full swing, knocking the bottle over. And there's my movement. Start without a ball, because I want you to feel what that movement's like before you go ahead and hit golf shots. But it's going to, I say, almost completely change how you move your lower body, which is going to get you to wind up behind it a lot better, and that's going to transfer to way better impacts, way better kind of deliveries of the golf club. So let me hit you a shot. I'm not going to go at full speed here, and I would advise you do the same when you're taking it through to golf shots. Let's start slow. We can always add the speed later, but at this stage, it's kind of more about making the right movement. So let's see if I can knock the bottle over. And that is a little low draw right up the middle. Wasn't quite at full speed. I'll tell you what, I'm not having it back. Bottle got knocked over, and you should see how that pivot was pretty good. So a tiny, tiny, tiny little movement in your heel could unlock some way better drives, and you might even look like Rory McIlroy as you're doing it.